When you've got a whole pile of people just working for a common goal, it's amazing. You don't need a lot of structure. You don't have to have employee manuals and you don't have to have things on the wall. There's an intuitive, we're here to get a job done. We're here to win.
Yeah.
It's like a bit of a warrior mentality. We just want to conquer.
Yeah. Welcome to The Little Black Book, a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs who provide their first-hand experiences to help others learn and grow. This podcast is brought to you by Altitude Advisory. Altitude Advisory is a modern business advisory firm helping business owners build a better business for a better life. In this episode of The Little Black Book, I'm joined by Andrew Downs. Andrew is the founder and executive director of Sage Group. Grown from a backyard business to a group employing over 600 people in 18 locations, Andrew's vision, leadership and passion underpins the success and culture of the entire Sage organisation. He initiated and implemented the private shareholding structure that currently exists and is actively involved in all subsidiary businesses. In this episode, he speaks about his lifelong journey of learning and how that has underpinned much of the growth initiatives for the business. He speaks about the shared values and how he has used that to build an aligned team of executives, team members and advisors. He discusses various crises that the business has endured, from nearly losing the company during the GFC and how a clear plan and strategy provided comfort to external bankers to provide ongoing support. Finally, Andrew shares about his bucket list and the experiences he is creating as he moves on to the next stage of his career.
Hi, I'm Andrew Downs. I'm the founder and executive director of the Sage Group, and I've really enjoyed being part of the Little Black Book this morning.
Mate, thanks for joining me. Do you have a favourite movie of all time?
Mate, I think The Departed would be one of them.
Okay.
Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Casino. Anything with Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, okay. What's the attraction with Martin Scorsese?
Oh, just the way he characterises people. You know, the mafia.
Yeah.
There's always a bit of mystery, intrigue.
Yeah.
He did the Wall Street, the Wolf of Wall Street as well.
That's true.
So always great storylines, very entertaining.
Yeah. No, I caught a bit of Wolf of Wall Street last night on Fox, so there you go.
Yeah, a little bit outrageous, I like that type of thing.
Yeah, no, that's good. What about a book, mate, that you read as a child or a young adult that had an impact on you, either as an individual or set you up in business?
Well, I could only remember one book as a child, probably around about 10, 11.
Yeah.
It was called My Side of the Mountain.
Okay.
Right, about a kid who lives in the Catskills. He runs away from home or something. Then there would be no book reading until I'm just started business.
Yeah.
And actual fact, I just joined tech.
Yeah.
And the then tech chair said, go and get Michael Gerber's The E-Myth.
Yep.
Which is, from a business point of view, very profound.
Yeah. And what were some of the learnings in that? I think, 90% of business people would have or should have read that. If they haven't, what were some of the key takeaways out of that for you? Yeah.
So 100% agree with the 90% of people should read it.
Yeah.
Well, the E-Myth means the entrepreneurial myth.
Yeah.
And people don't go into business to be an entrepreneur. They don't go into business to make a lot of money. They go into business because they're good at something.
Yeah.
They've got a trade, they've got a skill.
Mm-hmm.
The book focuses on a girl who makes pies, apple pies or something, and then she slowly builds it into a bakery and turns into a business.
Yeah. Is that how you got started?
Well, when I read it, it just made total sense to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't go into business to be an entrepreneur. I went into business because I hated bureaucracy. I could do what I do. I could work with my hands and I could make a living.
Yeah. And so just tell us about that. What was the trigger to get started and do your own thing with Sage?
Well, I did my apprenticeship with Bridgestones.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic company. But as I went up I suppose, what would you call it, go up the ladder?
Yeah.
I became a maintenance supervisor by 25, so I had leadership roles.
Yeah.
But I could still feel there's a large amount of bureaucracy and control and I'd mastered the art of industrial control systems.
Yeah.
That was my passion.
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of work on the shop floor and we'd always do projects and work on it was a very satisfying role.
Yeah.
And then I started doing a bit of part-time work and I just said, why would I keep doing this? So I basically said, I'll just start in my back shed. I can make enough money. I had enough confidence just to make wages, really.
Yeah. And that was the trigger and said,
that was the trick.
Just going to go and have a go. Start out of the back shed.
You know what? This is another myth, right?
Yeah.
You just don't sit at work one day and say, I'm going to give up. I mean, I was doing a bit of part-time work. I was a bit of moonlighting, helping a couple of electrical contracting friends.
Yeah.
So there was a build-up to my decision.
Yeah.
You know, working on weekends, doing a few drawings, wiring some panels in my shed. Had a shed built in my backyard. So there was a plan.
Yeah.
But then it come the day when my boss said, you know what, enough's enough.
Yeah.
You either work here or you go.
There. Yeah.
And he knew about it. He was just a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
And it took me about 2 seconds to say, right, I'm out.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. It's interesting now so that was what, 1994?
94. And I suppose I'd started tinkering in about 91, 92, 93. So that was a very bad recession in the time too.
Yeah.
So 91, 92 was really bad.
Yeah. And
so I wouldn't have got into business then because it was just a tough environment.
Tough environment to go. So when you've made the call to go out and do that, you're tinkering in the back shed, 1994, go out on your own. Did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that Sage would be what it is now compared to, I'll call it the one-man band operating out of Andrew Downs' backyard?
Absolutely not. No. I think there's always times when you dream or you think, but nothing like what has transpired to today.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a great story. I'll definitely want to talk about that more. In terms of, I guess, your career and your learnings and I guess your foundations, you like you just said, you started business in your mid-20s. Was there a travel experience or something like that you went and did as a young adult that sort of gave you a really strong foundation or a grounding or confidence to actually, take that leap?
Once again, it wasn't as a young adult, and it certainly wasn't through my career at Bridgestones. I did get to go to Japan with the company. Yeah. And, that was an eye-opener, but it wasn't as profound as the trip I did in 2002. Yeah. I'd found out there was an organization in the US called the Control Systems Integrators Association. Yeah. And I thought, man, because that's typical America. There's an association for everything. And I thought, I'm going to go to this. Yeah. And found out where it was. It was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Just rolled up to go to this conference. Yeah. Paid my dues. And it was amazing. Yeah. So where else am I going to sit in a room? There was 90 members in those days. Yeah. All running automation companies. Yeah. And I've always said Australia just doesn't. We don't operate like this. Yeah. They get in this room and they share and they. Mm-hmm. And that's when I discovered that Sage, even in those days, because we'd grown pretty strongly up to 2002, I was already $11 million in revenue or something. Yeah. We were already punching above our weight compared to the US market. Yeah. So when you start to see from an Adelaide-based company, you think, well, we're in a bit of a backwater. The US has got to be massive. Well, it wasn't. Yeah. So it just helped me define where we sit in the world.
Get clarity on that.
I got clarity, what you can become, how big you could be. Yeah. And I haven't missed a CSIA, we call it, since 2002 bar COVID.
Yeah, okay.
Go back every year.
It's really interesting you talk about that. And I think a lot of business owners do this poorly, is the investment in yourself and your education. And, you've just said what a transformative thing for that was for you in 2002. Absolutely. And go and do that. And, I know you're a member of tech, you do other learning and conference. How important has that investment in yourself been to help you scale and grow Sage?
Yeah, I think it's been critical. So we mentioned tech. Yeah. I joined tech in 2001. Yeah. So now I'm in my 21st year of tech. That's all about lifelong learning. That's about understanding, all the different stages of business. And I think if you go back in time, there's different speakers that you get exposed to, and other business people give you great experiences. Yeah. Or learnings. And then if you fast forward it to in 2013, I applied to go to Harvard, mm-hmm. Harvard Business School, the OPM program. Yeah. Owner President's Management course. Once again, I'd put that down as a truly defining moment in my life, where you go to, basically on campus in Harvard Business School. Yeah. Getting a crash course in finance, global economics, marketing, strategy, innovation, negotiation. And that was another turning point. So, where to next? There'll be something that'll pop up.
Yeah. It's interesting. Was that always a passion? Because I think, I've heard you say before that, you weren't particularly engaged with school or whatever it as a youngster, but, went off and obviously got into Bridgestone and did all that sort of stuff. Where's this thirst for learning actually come from for you?
Bugger if I know. All I know is that I really stuffed up at school. I had a wonderful family life, but there was no discipline in terms of education. So when I got to year 11 and I had to get a job, I started getting aptitude tests from all these prospective employers. Problem is, didn't have no idea. There was no aptitude there. So the job at Bridgestone, quite ironically, was the only one that didn't do the aptitude test. It was purely an interview based on, I suppose, character or politeness or eagerness.
Yeah.
So I think when you dodge a bullet in your life, and school didn't have meaning to me.
Yeah.
As soon as I got that apprenticeship, it had meaning.
Yeah.
I was good at trade school, did post-trade, did an associate diploma, electrical engineering, went on courses. So I think you need the trigger point.
Yeah. Is that, and, I'm not sure, we haven't really spoken much previously about your family and stuff like that, and you just mentioned not a great deal of discipline in school. What was the dynamics of that like, and how did that, maybe impact you or drive you in a different way than to go and do this?
Look, very simple, beautiful parents.
Yeah.
Mum never had a job apart from being a housewife, which is cool.
Yeah.
Never had a driver's license. Older parents.
Yeah.
Dad owned a bakery for a while. Then he turned into a delivery driver. So money was never a focus of theirs.
Yeah.
Living in Woodside, veggie garden, just
simple,
chill. No, you should be doing this, son, or, do this, whatever you wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have been digging ditches and they would have been happy.
Yeah. But I suppose it gave you a bit of a foundation for you to go and, write your own adventure, I suppose.
I think what it did do, I've looked back at this and I thought, well, maybe because we didn't have a lot, that does make you more aspirational.
Yeah.
When you started, I remember going at Bridgestones, I learned, the power of overtime. Overtime is you get paid double time on a Sunday. We used to work Saturdays and Sundays. So the power of money crept into my life.
Yeah.
In terms of the more you make, the more you could do.
Yeah. And it's interesting, just that line, people say money's not everything, but, it sure helps you have a lot of fun along the way too.
Absolutely.
And I know, you enjoy life now and get out. How much of, I guess you've worked hard to get to where you are now. Looking back, how important was, I guess, setting some of those goals and targets for you to be able to go and drive cars or travel or spend time with mates and all that sort of stuff? If you were to rewind the clock, 30 years to your backyard.
I think it's very important. Maybe it's that previous generation to ours, Andrew, people used to think of all about money in terms of building this great wealth for when they retire, or I haven't had that philosophy. So I've certainly spent it along the way. Yeah. But always reinvested back in the business as well. Yeah. So, there's a stark contrast between me and a lot of other entrepreneurs. Yeah. I live a pretty basic life, but if I want to do something, I go and do it. So let's just talk about Sage for a sec, mate. Now it's, I think it's well over 600 employees, 18, 20 locations, all that sort of stuff around. It's a massive beast compared to the backyard. Yeah. Talk to us a bit about that journey, and I guess some of the key things that you did along the way in terms of, strategy or investment or learning or, different tactics to basically get to the business from the backyard to where it is now. Yeah. Well, I think let's throw strategy out. Right? There was no strategy. Yeah. I'm in a backyard. I'm having a great time. I'm making money. Yeah. Then I start getting busy. And when you get busy, you got to employ someone. Yeah. So, of course, I went back to Bridgestones. Yeah. And they had an apprentice who, it was the policy that once he'd finished his trade, that he had to go. Yeah. And it was Jason. I said, well, Jason, come and work for me. And then I got busy with Jason and I went back again, and there was another tradesman there who I really admired. Now, Bridgestone weren't that happy with that, but they could see what was going on. And then I'm up to 3. So within about 3 months, I got 3. Yeah. Me and 2 others. Yeah. And by the end of that year, it was up to 7. Now, that's just because there's an insatiable desire to please, to do good work. Yeah. It wasn't about money. There was no strategy. Yeah. It's do a good job, and then miraculously you got more work. Yeah. And with more work, you need more people. Yeah.
And how did you find, I guess, not having any business experience from that point, you're working at Bridgestones running a team or a division, to then having to worry about paying wages and bills and tax obligations and all that sort of stuff. How did you go about getting your head around that at an early age?
Oh, mate, just fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Push through, get things wrong.
Yeah.
I remember the local council had started monitoring the business because as a home business, you'd only have one employee.
Yeah.
With strict hours between 9 to 5 or something.
Yeah.
But we were working from 5 in the morning till midnight, banging and crashing. So someone was dobbing me in.
Yeah.
And the council, they kept issuing these notices to say, you got to cease the business there. So I just kept throwing them in the bin.
Yeah.
Until one day, my then partner was served quite a thick document.
Yeah.
By someone who looked pretty important.
Yeah.
I opened it up and I'm summoned to appear in court.
Right.
So, what do you do then? I've got no lawyer.
Yeah.
So I rang an accountant mate of mine. He said, I went to school with a lawyer and I got his name. And it's like chaos.
Yeah.
You just move from one crisis to another. Cash flow, what's that?
Yeah.
Banks will keep giving you money. Ignorance is bliss. I think but when you've got a lot of energy and you just keep doing things for the right reasons, somehow it works out.
Yeah. So you then scaled up and you said by 2002, you're 11 million turnover, presumably out of the backyard by then.
Yep.
Joined tech in 2001. Mm-hmm. So that joining of tech then, was that probably a key trigger again to help take the business to the next level?
Well, in actual fact, if I go back to the story of the lawyer, that lawyer, he used to be a member of tech.
Right.
Quite ironically.
Yeah.
And he took an interest in me and said, this is a great little business. Why don't we set up a little advisory board?
Yeah, okay.
His name was David Johnson, one of Adelaide's really interesting lawyers and businessmen. And I suppose that was the catalyst to say, well, you need to do this better, you need to do that. I suppose it's the whole advisory board thing happened early.
Yeah, wow.
But he took an interest, and I think he gave me some excellent advice.
Yeah.
Actually.
Is that, and it's interesting, and I've seen the journey of a lot of, business owners from startup to where they get to. A lot of them struggle to take advice or don't want to invest in taking advice or invest back in the business. What actually led you down a different path? To listen to David, to set up an advisory board, which would have probably been a little bit ahead of its time in terms of either doing it or for the size of business at that point. What was it that, you said the ignorance is bliss bit, saying, okay, well, I'm just going to listen to smart people, or was there some other?
I suppose you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
For him to say, you're doing this wrong, that's wrong. What do you, a good mentor should be pretty tough on you as well.
Yeah.
So we used to call him Bulldog because he's quite aggressive.
Yeah.
But that's good. That's, not only brought me on the journey, but those people working around me.
Yeah.
Because we're all trade-based. We're not businessmen. And what happens is you start building a team.
Yeah.
And then the team can actually see the achievements, and they're all interested in. Strategy would have crept into my life by around about 2000. So operated the business just organically or just by nature.
Yeah.
In 2000, David Johnson introduced me to a guy called Bill Anschutz. Now, funny enough, Bill was in his tech group. So there's a strong theme here that links back to tech all the time.
Yeah.
And Bill Anschutz was an ex-Ford Motor Company executive, elder statesman, I'd call him, used to run a car yard, and instantly everyone just loved Bill.
Yeah.
Right. Bill became a true sage to sage.
Yeah.
He had knowledge. He come from a trade himself. He was an accomplished businessman. So that's when we had our first strategy day. I still remember it, down at North Haven there. So no, it was at Glenelg.
Yeah.
And that's when we first even understood the concept of what's the vision?
Yeah.
What's the strategy? What are our core values? And that's fascinating.
Yeah. And how much of that, I guess, vision, core values that, I guess you identified back in 2000, how much of that is still real today?
Well, I think I'm very strong on core values and vision and mission and strategy.
Yeah.
So we all know about the strategy on a page. These are the incremental milestones you go through your life. I love going back to old strategy papers that were done in 2002 or 2004. And our goal and our aspiration then is totally different to what it is today.
Yeah.
So it's an incremental journey, I think, critical. I mean, how I survived the first 6 years without it, I'll never know. But
I guess in that respect, you look at those challenges that you probably had in those first 6 years, and they help build the foundation for what you're able to build after that.
yeah.
So I think there's great learnings in that chaos. So at the same
Chaos.
time,
When you've got a whole pile of people just working for a common goal, it's amazing. You don't need a lot of structure. You don't have to have employee manuals, and you don't have to have things on the wall. There's an intuitive, we're here to get a job done. We're here to win.
Yeah.
It's like a bit of a warrior mentality.
Yeah.
In terms of, we just want to conquer.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit like Genghis Khan or something. Just go out.
Just go and do stuff.
Win more work, employ more people.
Yeah.
Do a great job.
Yeah.
Beat the incumbents. I'll always remember, and it's a bit unfair on these guys, I really dislike this large automation company in Adelaide. I just had this, I had it in for them. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I know we sit at different sides of the football. It's a bit like Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide, yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to take these guys down.
Yeah.
And here we are, a small business, and they were very accomplished, 26 years in business, and I just would not stop and sent them broke. Basically, they went into administration in 1999. I bought the company.
Yeah.
Which is all fascinating, really.
Yeah.
It's just, I suppose, be careful what you do when you put your mind to something.
Yeah. So, but it was a goal, or it was a
goal.
It was a target.
Win at any cost.
Yeah.
All this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Makes no logic, no sense. If you did a strategy paper on it, people stupid.
Yeah. But I mean, it creates, what it does create is it creates a vision, and it motivates you to go and do stuff.
I think you get to see the results of your actions.
Yeah, correct.
And with a better control and better strategy, you can be a lot. Obviously, we probably, if you kept doing what we were doing, you'd go broke yourself.
Yeah.
Or you'd lose your team, or you'd self-destruct.
Yeah.
So I think when you start feeding in good management practices, theory,
yeah,
and then you start to scale up.
Yeah.
Which I think is our story.
Yeah, no, that's great. So some other steps along the way then for you. So, start up 2000, first strategy session, key milestone. I think, what did you say? It was 2008 or whenever, 2013, Harvard, and learning. What are some of the other key triggers or key milestones along the way, if you look back, that really set you guys up?
Well, go back to 2000, because I think that's a very important year in Sage's history. So for whatever reason, I was 100% owner of Sage.
Yeah.
And I just had this concept that there was 4 guys in the business who were always there, that they were the ones that you could rely on, right?
Yeah.
You could laugh when we win, you could cry when we lose. They were the guys I believed were the shoulder to shoulder guys that I didn't want to lose.
Yeah.
So I said to them, would you like to be shareholders?
Yeah.
They're all like, they've got no money.
Yeah.
And I said, well, they said, how does it work? I said, well, you'll have to buy some shares. I'm not going to give them to you.
Yeah.
Well, what's the valuation? I think I licked my finger and the wind was a certain breeze. And I said, I don't know, 50 grand for 5%.
Yeah.
Sounds fair to me. And I said, if you make that commitment, I'll give you another 5% for another 50 grand in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
No, there was no corporate advisor. There was no nothing. I mean, that was pretty cheap. And they had to go home and talk to their wives. That was a big deal. They all had to mortgage their homes.
Yeah.
So this is a really important thing they trusted me. I wanted them. And it's never faded. It's never faltered in my history.
Yeah.
Those 4 shareholders still there today. We do get our shares properly valued now.
Yeah.
I think, they've definitely made 20, 25 times their money.
Yeah.
They haven't cashed out. It's just been a great story.
Yeah.
And I think, as you know, Andrew, you must see so much yourself where partnership, shareholding, it doesn't work for a lot of people.
No, correct.
Egos and other things.
Yep.
Right? So it was a foundation that still works for us today, because there's other executives that come on.
Yeah.
Since.
So it's a really interesting point that you made about bringing these 4 guys on and, shareholders and you're 100% right that people go out and bring partners and other shareholders in and it ends up going to the,
custard.
Custard is a good way of putting it. What was right about these 4 guys? Why did it work with them? What was the dynamics or whatever of your relationship that you got right that they're still there?
Well, I think these are the guys you're working shoulder to shoulder with. I mentioned that before, right?
Yeah.
So when you're doing a startup like we did, there was no boundaries on hours. It was 7 days a week. It was night. We might have had any of those guys that could have said, who wants to stay back and help me with a quote? Mm-hmm. They'd be back till 2 a.m. we've still got to get up at 5. We've got to be at Hull, or whatever it was. We've got to be at a client's premises. And it was just unrelenting.
Yeah.
So, loyalty, hard work, they believed.
Yeah.
They believed that they were worthy. These guys, they've all gone on to be quite senior in the company. Well, one of them's the CEO now.
Yeah. And presumably, you're quite comfortable, having a beer with them or, socially, and you can get along at the same time.
Well, trust me, in the early days, it was all about having a beer. I mean, there was not a lot of accountability for not having a good time.
Yeah.
Work hard, play hard was one of our core values.
Yeah. But it's interesting. So, it's really clear then that worked because the four of them and yourself were really clearly aligned about what you stood for and what you did.
100% aligned.
And enjoyed each other's company and all those bits that went with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Spend time together. But when everyone's on the same bus, it's a bit of the old Jim Collins things. You've got to get the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
They were just the right people.
Yeah, cool. So after that, what other key things along the way that if you look back, saying, okay, this made a real fundamental difference in getting us to where we are now?
Yeah, I think when we first decided to branch out of Adelaide, by 2003, I reckon the business in South Australia was doing really well.
Yeah.
Let's just go and set up in Melbourne. Right, once again, there's not a lot of thought goes into it, not a lot of strategy, but it seemed logical to me that Melbourne's a bigger market than Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
What we didn't realise is totally different dynamic. There's different competitors. There's different things. So we employed a guy over there. It didn't go so well.
Mm-hmm.
And as one of the shareholders, Paul Markwick said, you know what? I'm happy to pack up my house, my family, and go to Melbourne.
Yeah.
And he did that. And he sold a beautiful home in Wayville. We had to help him out a bit with the cost of a house in Adelaide compared to Melbourne, all that stuff. We did that.
Yeah.
Well, Paul has taken that business up to over 100, 108 people now.
Yeah.
We've just shifted into new premises in the Herald Weekly Times building, which is quite amazing. I mean, it's starting to rival South Australia, our homegrown office here.
Yeah.
And I just look back and say that was understanding different territories, different. I think there's another myth that if you're successful in South Australia, you're successful anywhere else. I disagree.
Yeah.
You've got to understand the markets and the customers and how it works. And
it's different cultures, isn't it?
Different cultures. But when we got it to work, of course, we had that appetite. Why not Sydney? Why not Brisbane? Why not Darwin? And I suppose they're important case studies.
Yeah. But it's really interesting, though, that actually making Melbourne work or helping Melbourne work was actually one of your key foundation people and somebody who's clearly invested in the business going and saying, well, I'm going to go and take control of this.
Yep. And that is in every other instance. We employed a great guy in Sydney who approached us and said, why don't you have an office in Sydney? His name was Tim, great guy. Business went nowhere. One of the other Adelaide guys volunteered to go over, become a manager. So I think there's an element of this core values, the spirit, who you are. Now, we've just employed 2 new managers and they've come externally. Yeah. But I think the culture's set. The organisations are big enough now that they either fit in with our culture or they won't work.
Yeah.
But to get things started, you needed the people that knew how we ticked.
Yeah.
Knew what we're all about.
Yeah. No, I think it's some really good points there. So as you've gone along your journey, from founder, CEO, you don't do too much on the tools or day-to-day operations or anything like that now. Can you talk through your transition as a leader through the business where, this has been built up to where you could effectively hand the reins over, I guess, to a management team?
Yeah. I love the question because I'll take you through that journey. So yes, I was the managing director and the CEO, I suppose. And then 2007, I thought, out of the 4 shareholders, Adrian Fay was certainly the most suited, I think, to that CEO role. So I made him CEO of the company in 2007. He always says I got my timing perfectly right because 2008 was a really tough time in business at the GFC.
Yeah.
And I was still managing director, and I tend to look after some of these other brands that we were trying to develop. Yeah. And Adrian was the CEO of the main business.
Yeah.
Now that freed me up. Once I learnt that if you can promote yourself to your own level of incompetence, I think I've always said, if you can actually bring people in behind you and have them trained, they're good at what they do, that gives you the opportunity to do other things.
Yeah.
And probably things that you're better at. So I'm not a details person. I'd have to say more of a big picture thinker, hate detail, hate bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to be a little bit untethered. I like to look at different things, make a lot of mistakes, get a lot of things wrong, but get a lot of things right. What do they say? If you get more right than you get wrong, you tend to move in the right direction.
Yeah.
So the GFC was tough. That was tough. That was when debt was good. Suddenly, debt's bad.
Yeah.
And we had a hell of a lot of trouble with banks and going into bad banks and investigative audits. It was a shocker. Breaching covenants. It was a train wreck for us. Now that teaches you. Probably that is the closest moment in my life where it was all over. It was nearly over. It balanced on it was the finest point in the business of win or lose.
Yeah, okay.
And we could have lost everything, but we didn't.
So what got you through?
Great people, great customers, believe it or not, good systems. And we were just stuck with this debt that these banks had given us. It was about $5 million. It wasn't insignificant. And the whole world stopped in the GFC. Everything tripped over.
Yeah. So
we just had to grind our way over it. But a really good part of this story is all the banks went and they basically bring in solvency experts.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this guy in a grey suit who's sitting in your company for like, I don't know, 2 months, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they charge a fixed fee. Well, the guy heading up that operation was out of Ferrier Hodgson. It was Bruce Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce appointed someone to our business. And of course, Bruce was working for the bank.
Yeah.
And then they've got to give their recommendation. It's a real Julius Caesar moment to say. It's the old thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
So we did our 8 weeks, and I remember Bruce, he was sitting at the end of a table. He had a light behind him, so he had that little bit of a messiah look about him, right? Yeah. And I'm at the other end of the table, and we're all sitting there. It was the moment. The moment. He could have easily said, look, guys, I have to tip you in. That's what the bank wants. Or I'm giving it any. The great news is he gave us the thumbs up and said the reasons why: great systems, good customers, solid business. What have you done wrong? You borrowed money. You've probably expanded too quickly. So there's some learnings, really key learnings. And of course, you go back, you still have to work with a bad bank. You've got to pay up all that debt back.
Yeah.
You've got to become profitable. If I look back, it's probably one of another building block to a successful business is having a moment like that where you have to rein yourself in, re-strategize, rethink, restructure.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm picking up, just I guess in our chat, is this theme around key people. And Bruce is another one you've just mentioned there, because Bruce is now on your board, correct?
Bruce is our chairman now, which is quite ironic. Yeah.
Who else are we missing here on this journey? So you've mentioned David and Bill, and now Bruce.
Well, I guess David McNeil was a previous chairman of ours, and he was quite an industrialist. And we had Yvonne Snedden on the board. She was ex-Deloitte. So we've always tried to bring people in on our board that complement our skills. I mean, we don't want an automation person. We don't need anyone with electrical knowledge. We need people with life skills outside of what we've got.
Yeah.
Our board today is a very strong board. We've got Michael Gavoni, who's ex-Spotless out of Melbourne, Yvonne Collier, who is basically representing a lot of technology companies out of Sydney, Stuart Glenn here in Adelaide, ex-Parsons Brinckerhoff and Brambles, and Bruce as a chair, myself, Adrian Down. So as a board, we really work well together. Strategy, understanding where we're going as a company.
Yeah. It's a really interesting theme that I'm seeing here, is how you've surrounded yourself with these type of people over the journey, and I think how important that's been. So 2008 GFC, you've just handed the reins to Adrian, and you mentioned these opportunities to go and do other things or find new ventures. Now that's something that I guess has been a bit of a theme for Sage over recent years, where you've gone and found, I guess, new ventures, and I guess you've got Skills Lab and some other bits and pieces that are part. What was the motivation to go away and do things that I guess are complementary to core business, but also aren't core business?
There's really, talk about other people in our business life who are important. A guy called Euron Roos come to Adelaide. He was the South Australian thinker in residence.
Yeah.
I reckon he showed up in around about 2010. So we'd got through all the problems with the financials, and Ewan rolled up, and he was about business model innovation.
Yeah.
Right? Which, once again, I just signed up straight away. The Australian Industry Group sponsored him, so did the South Australian government. I know they were charging like 10 grand for a little course.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought two of them, one for our training company, and one for Sage Automation. And his message was really clear: is what business are you really in? And Sage was just a pile of stuff. We were doing projects, we were doing manufacturing, we were servicing, we were trying to do some training. So we're all in one bucket. And what he said, well, what business are you really in? Made me think, well, hang on. We're in four businesses. We're in the business of delivering projects. We're in the business of making things in our workshop, business of training, a business of servicing people. Mm-hmm. So straight away we changed our brand. Sage Automation with the 4 pillars. We branded around that. And then that took me up to when I went to Harvard, which gave me another look at the world again and said, well, you know, are you at that stage we were a branded house? If you're going to expand, why don't you become a house of brands? And that's when we looked at it and said, it's not going to work shoving everything in Sage.
Yeah.
Because if you merge or you want to sell later or you want to take things on different paths, we both Adrian and myself said, let's go for the house of brands, which I think there's 8 or 9 different brands now in the organisation.
Yeah. Do you find it hard to keep up with them all?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to get a website. So they've all got to have their own websites. It's costly.
Yeah.
It's costly. And then you've got to try to link them all back to the group. But I suppose it's like we're running a small private equity or venture cap firm. They've all got to perform. They're all vying for money. We've got a couple of software companies that are still getting on their feet. So you have to have a platform for those companies to operate in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's complicated, but one of them could be a winner. While we've got the old cash cow, our core foundation business keeps plodding along.
Keeps doing all that. Because, it's interesting that, the house of brands, because you're right, each of them, I guess, are at different stages of their business life and they need different, investment of capital or resources or different stages of evolution. They don't all necessarily belong in the same spot.
Well, we actually have a group board that looks at the group. So we've got the sub-boards. I mean, there's another 5 sub-boards out of the group board. Group board will meet once a quarter to look at the big picture, where we're going as an organisation, as a group, finance, risk.
Yeah.
But then when you get to the individual boards, you're looking at growth, customers, where are we going? What's that? So it's like I've gone back in time and I'm running 6 or 7 small Sages again from a back
small
shed,
startups, yeah.
And that's exciting. That's always my passion. That's my drive and love.
Yeah. Is to go and spend time in those and build them up.
And one that's very close to my heart is Sage Capital.
Yeah.
Right? I've always had that passion to invest.
Yeah.
The first few investments are total disasters.
Yeah.
Well, one of them ended up in court and had to sue a guy and everything else. But we've got that philosophy right now. We invest in a company that we can help them with their product or service. And we've got one at the moment called CDSA, Container Deposit Solutions Australia. Mm-hmm. And we used our technology to help them create this amazing scale-up business for recycling bottles and cans. It's really been a winner.
Yeah.
And something I've just taken another investment in a company called Mapped.
Yeah.
Who's totally automated e-commerce photography, things like that. So that's a passion of mine. I get to sit on those boards. I get to deal with founders, risk. It's just what I love to do.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's almost, hearing you talk about that, you now, I guess, as a leader, have almost done a full circle back to where you started with, I guess what David and Bill and those early mentors did for you is that you're now you're paying it forward for somebody else.
I do a lot of that. I'm on a chairman of another board in Lonsdale, small manufacturer. Absolutely struggling when we come together. Yeah. And now the business is doing really well. But it's all from those same building blocks over time. But it all goes back to my experience.
Yeah.
You got your structure right. Do we have enough money? I learned pretty quickly cash is king. All the stuff that any business book's going to tell you. Getting the right people.
Yeah.
Are we focusing on the right markets? Are we making enough gross margins? The stuff just keeps, I suppose, recycling.
Yeah. No, it's a great story. You mentioned GFC. There's been I presume, other hiccups along the way. Is there any key learnings from any other crises or anything like that you can share?
What do they say? Was it your biggest challenge is your greatest opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
So something will come out of it. Either our structure's not right to handle it. We've always been well diversified. I think that's why we've done well.
Yeah.
There could be parts of it you're too diversified. So I just see whenever you have a problem in the company, it's typically because we've overcompensated. We've gone in a wrong path. We could be too high overhead in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need a problem to look, restructure, and move forward again. There's a little bit of the old 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes.
Mm.
I don't think business is linear. That's what I'm trying to say. You go up and then...
stepping stones as you go through.
Correct.
Yeah.
So a little bit of chaos there, but you typically move in the right direction.
Yeah.
And you use every negative step as a learning.
Yeah.
What's going on here? We used to make money in this business. We're not making money. Why is that?
Yeah.
Understand the reason why. Fix it. Move on.
You mentioned now that you're off working with, I call it all these startups and coaching and mentoring. Other goals for you that you're yet to accomplish?
I'm certainly in the next chapter.
Yeah.
If Sage was my first chapter or the middle chapter,
mm-hmm.
then I've embarked on something. I don't know where it's going to end up yet.
Yeah.
Actually, I gave a speech last night at the Industry Leaders Fund, and since Harvard, it's all about creating a platform.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose where I see the business now is we have to create a strong platform for business. So we've got a platform with these brands sitting on top. Our next most logical market's the US.
Yeah.
So Adrian and I will be going to the US in November, but we need to now say the business is working well in Australia. It's got the brands. How do we leverage one or some of those brands in the US?
Mm-hmm.
That would, if you have to put that, the chapter 3 is we're off to the US.
It's global.
Yeah. Global, scalable.
Yeah.
Platform business.
What about personal goals? It's a big business ambition. Anything personally that you have to tick off a bucket list, or have we got a timed lap that you need to beat or something like that? Because I know you love your cars.
Well, I've got certainly can get better on a timed lap, which we'll be enjoying soon. I've got a property at Oakbank, which is basically a blank canvas, 17 acres at Oakbank. That's a project that I'd like to see out, and obviously it's got to have a car shed and it's got to have a big barbecue pit. It's got to have all the stuff that a bloke wants.
Yeah.
A very dear friend of mine has an incurable cancer called multiple myeloma. So every year since he's, I'll say, in remission, we've had a bucket list tour.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll live my life through him a bit. I just come off a trip with him, three weeks. We went to Singapore, Rome, had his 60th birthday in Vegas, back through Hawaii, home. He's already said, why don't we do the test cricket next year? Okay, let's go to the test cricket. So bucket lists, it's funny enough, his bucket list very much aligned with mine. So we enjoy each other's company. It never stops. I don't spend enough time at the racetrack. It's a passion of mine, so I'll just have to adjust my life, I suppose, to fishing. I never used to be a fisherman. A mate of mine said, let's get a 115-foot yacht, and we're fishing up in the Kimberleys for barramundi or something. So it's a bit of adventure. I don't mind that.
No, that's great. It's interesting, and you just mentioned your mate who's got cancer. I've heard you talk about him before, and it's interesting. One of the mentors or person I spent a lot of time with, he's an ex-monk, and he said that death's a great impetus to do stuff. If you had 6 months to live, what would you actually be doing? Would you be spending your time grinding away at work, or would you be doing this, or who would you be spending time with? And I think it's a really interesting perspective with your mate and saying, okay, well, we've got a fixed amount of time. Make sure you use it to for best return.
Well, so he was 55, never been overseas, hadn't had a passport, gets cancer. Now I think we've just finished number 4 around the world trip.
It's great.
Right. And we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, it's a great story that you're doing that. Mate, do you have a life motto?
It's a bit bizarre, my life motto. You only understand people and their character when their own money's involved. Whenever I've seen someone can make a decision when it's not their money, as soon as they've got their money in it, they change. Their character changes. It's just bizarre. It's just something I've picked up over many years.
It's a really interesting insight, isn't it?
It is. I've never seen it written anywhere before. I've never seen anyone describe it that way.
Yeah.
But you might have the greatest bloke, and as soon as he invests $1 with you and you lose the dollar, he's suddenly
different person,
not your mate. You're done. You lost my dollar.
Brings out the best and worst.
Correct. That's just my personal motto.
Yeah, mate, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Andrew. I've really enjoyed it as well. Thanks.